Welcome back to today's economic news, where we dissect the headlines and decode what lies beneath the surface. I'm John, and today we are diving into Operation Pacific Viper, an initiative that promises to tackle drug trafficking with a heavy hand. But at what cost? Imagine that 20,000 pounds of cocaine seized. It sounds like a victory, right? But stay tuned as we unravel the complexities behind this headline and explore whether this marks genuine progress or merely a continuation of age-old policy missteps. Now, before we dive into the nuts and bolts of this operation, let's take a step back and think about why this should matter to you. Since August 2025, under the Trump administration's latest approach, we're seeing military-scale operations to combat drug cartels, specifically targeting shipments traveling from Latin America to the United States. This isn't just about drugs, my friends. It's framed as a national security issue, a threat so grand that it justifies an increased military presence in international waters. They're wielding the tools of war in the name of law and safety, banking on fear to drive policy. But here's something you must consider. Every time they label a drug cartel a terrorist entity, that essentially gives a blank check for military intervention under the guise of safety. So let's sit with that discomfort for a moment. The same military might that promises protection also raises questions of sovereignty, legality, and the potential for collateral damage. Are we throwing the baby out with the bathwater here? Before we look at today's supposed success, cast your mind back to 2020, a time when these aggressive tactics were merely planting their seeds. Traditional law enforcement measures were gradually giving way to military interventions. They were preparing us for this grand performance by dressing up national security with the costume of drug interdiction. Yet the question remains, has it worked? Let's dig into the data, one crumb at a time. First up, the headline-grabbing fact: 20,000 pounds of cocaine seized. Now, let's put that into perspective. That's the equivalent of removing over 7.5 million potentially lethal doses from circulation. Yet, what gets less attention in these heroic tales of seizure is what it truly costs. This isn't a catch-all game. It's a hyper-aggressive approach that's cost millions upon millions of taxpayer dollars. And hey, taxpayers, remember that every time they ramp up these operations, they're diving into that communal purse. You're paying for it. Whether you see direct returns is another debate entirely. And what do we have next? The report gleefully touts 1,600 pounds of cocaine captured daily. Just picture that. Imagine a hefty volume of cocaine every single day, snatched from unfortunate smugglers. But beneath the glamour of daily victory lurks a question that's tougher to ignore. Are we so enamored by the quantity snag that we neglect to ask how it keeps getting through in such quantities in the first place? Pete Hegseth enthusiastically states, "We've only just begun striking narco boats and putting narco terrorists at the bottom of the ocean." All very Hollywood-esque indeed. But while visions of sunken vessels play on repeat, let's not forget who bears this flood: you and me, drowning in tax receipts to fund military operations that don't seem to address the root disease, just its symptoms. Do they think we are fooled by epic one-liners enough to ignore the imbalance between actions taken and results achieved? Here's another for you: 510,000 pounds of cocaine seized in fiscal year 2025 alone, amounting to 193 million potential lethal doses thwarted. But look beyond the numbers and ask yourself, at what cost does this war on drugs wage on? Higher taxes? Less spending on public programs tackling root causes? Do we applaud the show of force and never question its necessity? When does national security end and personal intrusion begin? And just like that, my libertarian heart invites you to join this rant vernacular. Let's talk about inflation and theft. With increased military spending comes budgetary bloat, higher taxes, and inflation that nibbles away at economic independence. Beneath the roar of jets and vessels lies a cry for robust social services meant to heal communities, not criminalize them. But how can they, when resources are siphoned into policing the high seas? Government incompetence is back on center stage. What we are witnessing aren't just military maneuvers. These are systemic inefficiencies laid bare. Violence begets violence, collateral damage remains, but A footnote, and by flexing our military prowess, what are we achieving? A temporary lift in intercepted contraband, but nothing substantive to halt the flood. Rather than promote sustainable solutions, we're confronted with punitive theatrics. So I ask you again, is this working? Let's talk liberties lost. Military interventions blur lines between national safety and individual freedoms. Surveillance, policing, they're woven into the very fabric of this operation. Under the guise of security, are we unleashing forces that present more risk than response? A tangled web, indeed, where law enforcement meets intrusion and trust melts into suspicion. In conclusion, while the Pacific Viper operation grabs headlines, the real story teeters on the brink between success and systemic failure. When you consider everything we've discussed today, this is more than just a story about seized cocaine. It's about the broader implications for our economy and our freedoms. If you find yourself questioning the allocation of your tax dollars only to witness repeat performances of age-old tactics, then you're not alone. If you're tired of paying for their mistakes while genuine solutions remain out of focus, then I encourage you to join us on this journey by hitting subscribe. Until next time, keep questioning, keep analyzing, and never settle for the surface of the story.